Even if your money look a little funny, I'm gonna teach you how to teach kids about money. I have three disclaimers. Let's get started after those disclaimers. The first one being I am an educator, not a videographer or editor. So if my videos are not edited properly, forgive me. And then second, the financial literacy lessons are simply just that, just a lesson and showing you how I lesson plan. It does not constitute financial advice and should not be taken as such because I do not know your individual circumstances. That's the second part. The third part is anything that I mentioned in regards to like software or products that I'm using, I am not endorsed or sponsored by those products. So use or buy at your own risk. Let us get started. Okay, so the first thing you might be asking yourself is where do you house all your lessons? I house all my lessons inside of Planbook. Planbook is this online kind of one-stop shop for educators in order to store all of their lesson plans. And what you see up on the screen is one of the lessons that we taught about 2 weeks ago on credit mathematics. So when we dig into this week's lesson, this week's lesson is going to be um, the follow up to credit mathematics because we're going to do business credit today. So this is Planbook. Inside Planbook, we house the lesson overview and explanation, all of the activities, the lesson and discussion, also anything that we need to do in regards to calculations, debit cards, credit cards, like what are the differences, the activities, any videos that we're going to share during that time, and or vocabulary. One thing I would like to mention is one cool way of introducing vocabulary to students is by using a word search. So let me scroll down, and I'm sorry, I'm doing a lot of scrolling here. And the lesson questions are here with the answers as well. And then there's the activity. But here at the bottom, if you look here, it says credit and debit word search. It was created inside of Canva. You can probably create it using Microsoft Word or Canva as well if you have Canva. So we're going to get into all of this in a second. Okay, so in order to teach business credit, we first must start with personal credit. Before we dive into what exactly that looks like, let's review one of the financial literacy standards. So, Delaware's financial literacy standard, we're going to use standard number 2, which basically states students will analyze ways to improve their economic well being by making informed spending decisions, which entails collecting information, planning, and budgeting, basically money management, right? And forgive me for looking to the left, but I'm looking at the additional screen and computer on this side. For 9 to 12 or 9th to 12th grade, it says students will examine how ability to pay and personal credit history influence an individual's financial opportunities and choices. So with that being said, we first have to start with personal credit. And the last lesson we taught approximately 2 weeks ago was on credit mathematics. So this lesson is a build onto the credit mathematics. This is now business credit. So the first thing that you want to do is activate prior knowledge with the lesson that you taught before. So basically you taught about credit mathematics. For those of you who haven't taught that yet, you might want to start there in regards to how do you build personal credit? What's a social security number? What's an account number? What's the difference between debit cards and credit cards? That kind of thing. So let me get into our comparison chart. In order to make this comparison chart, this was made inside of Canva. All you have to do is go inside where it says templates, type in comparison chart, type in graphs, and look for something very similar in which you can compare, of course, two items. To give you a little background on the right hand side in regards to personal, this objective for credit mathematics was students will develop an understanding of credit card interest. Students will comprehend how credit card functions within purchases, finance charges, and how to use a credit card correctly. So after teaching that lesson and going through what credit is and having them calculate interest and all that good stuff, then we're now going to be able to say, all right, remember we went over this in regards to personal credit. Now let's connect what we've learned in regards to personal credit to business credit. And basically what you want to get into is the fact that in order to apply for a credit card, you must know your social security number so you can put it down, right? And then with that social security number, this is how they begin to build your credit score. And then you go through the whole process with them in regards to opening up a checking account, who are the major credit bureaus, and just pretty much go down the list on the right-hand side. And then in connection, the same way we as individuals have social security numbers, business have EIN numbers. So we want to make sure we're making that comparison for our students. So when it comes to teaching about business credit, you want to, one, start with personal credit, get real detailed in regards to how you begin establishing personal credit, and then to connect business credit to personal credit. So that was this lesson here. And now we're going to get into objective for business credit. And before we nosedive into business credit, let's first look at some activities. So, when it comes to teaching about personal credit, business credit, or whatever it is that you're teaching about in regards to financial literacy, what you want to do is create a word search. You can create a word search by one, going into Microsoft Word and pretty much just creating tables, and then, of course, put in the letters inside of the boxes. Or you can come inside of Canva, look for a word search template, and just edit that template as well, right? Once you have your vocabulary that you're going to use, and let's say, for example, you say, hey, I'm not really sure what vocabulary I'm going to use when it comes to teaching personal credit, you can always type in to ChatGPT or something and say, hey, give me a list of words that I can use as vocabulary for a credit lesson. Then you create your word search accordingly. The QR code in the corner is for a different activity. That activity is for a crossword puzzle as well. So that also kind of reinforces the credit lesson and or vocabulary. The platform is called Interacty, and that's Interacty. That platform allows you to create crossword puzzles, and then it allows you to generate a QR code, and it allows you to kind of share it in PDF. So it's pretty cool because you can also create the crossword puzzle inside of Interactive. And if you can't scan the QR code, you can always just print it out, and then the students can do the crossword puzzle there. So for this resource for word searchers and crosswords, Canva, Interactive. Let's continue on. So, the lesson objective this week is going to be students will understand the basics of business credit and compare it to personal credit concepts learned in credit mathematics. So, remember, credit mathematics was the lesson they learned a week or two ago, and then we're building off of that lesson in order to then teach business credit. So, there's your lesson objective. Now, in regards to manipulatives, so the cards that you used to get in the mail, right? Saying you're pre-approved for a card, you can use those. If you wanted to, let's say, print your own money, you can print it. Just be mindful that when you're trying to print, if it looks too much like US currency, your printer is not going to allow it. So you definitely want to make changes so that way your printer will allow you to print it. What was the purpose of having this? Is so that way students can have a real, like, legit manipulative in front of them, so that way you can say, hey, your credit limit is $1,000, and then you hand them $1,000 in play money, right? Or you can just use Monopoly money. So those are your manipulatives. That's your objective. And then in regards to your activity can be the comparison sheet. So while I may have showed you all of the answers on that comparison sheet, you can delete certain sections, so that way that leaves it as an activity for the student to do. Lastly, and again, Canva. This was created inside of Canva, but it was also translated in Canva. So if you're like me, I'm an instructor. However, I do not speak Spanish, even though my last name is Ramirez. So I translate using Canva. And then the purpose of this lesson here is basically to explain how your personal credit score looks like grades. So what we're doing is the same way, depends on what district you are in and how your syllabus is set up. Most of the time, students' grades are based on their majors and their minors, right? So, like, let's say majors are 70% of their grade and minors are 30% of their grade. With that being said, you're saying, hey, here's what your grade is made up of, majors and minors, and this is how you get an A in my course. Same way you explain that to your students. This is the same way you want to explain personal credit. You want to explain to them that having an A in credit in personal credit means having a 720 or higher, and that their score is made up of the calculations you see on the right hand side here, where 35% is payment history, right? How, if you're paying on time, that kind of thing. And you want to kind of compare that same thing, their score that they get inside the classroom versus the score that they're getting in regards to personal credit. Once you have laid this solid foundation, this is where you want to build off it and then start on business credit, because business credit is very similar in the sense that if you have a social security number, you need an EIN. If you are opening trade lines, it's very similar to department store cards, that kind of thing. So with that being said, I hope this was super helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. If you want any of the activities that I've shown today, I can absolutely share them as well as a link, and enjoy.